Tornadoes have been top of mind for a lot of us this year because the summer of 2025 saw some truly devastating twisters.
I told my son to brace himself because when the sky turned black, I knew it was coming.
In May, an EF3 tornado tore through St. Louis, Missouri, damaging thousands of homes and killing 5 people.
If you never saw Mother Nature's worst, this is what it looks like. I mean, like houses collapsed, trees that's been around forever, fell over, power lines. Our corner store can't even open because the roof gone.
In June, a tornado even touched down here, near the Kansas City Stadium complex.
A scary sight for people in Raytown.
Which I will point out is just over 6 miles from where I am right now. According to my KCUR colleague, Maya Cederlund, this is when the murmurs started around the office.
I heard about the split the first week of my internship.
Basically, some people who had grown up in Kansas City were in shock. Because up until this tornado threat, the prevailing message everyone repeated over and over again was, tornadoes? Oh, they don't touch down around here.
A lot of people were really surprised that this tornado kind of even reached it to the Kansas City metro area because there's this thing that's called the Tonganoxie Split.
According to the legend of the Tonganoxie Split, tornadoes traveling through Kansas get diverted or weakened around the small town of Tonganoxie, about 30 miles west of Kansas City.
I was like, no way, this is so crazy that this is like scientifically real, like it is scientifically a fact. And then it kind of just like fascinated me a bit. I was like, ooh, like I kind of want to dig into this more.
It is a crazy idea, considering that the state of Kansas, where Tonganoxie is located, is sort of famous for tornadoes. You've seen The Wizard of Oz, right?
It's a twister! It's a twister!
Kansas is smack in the middle of Tornado Alley, which means it experiences some of the most tornadoes in the country, an average of 81 a year. And for generations, in Kansas and elsewhere, lore like the Tonganoxie Split has been passed down. Attempts to make sense of tornadoes and their erratic behavior.
A tornado's destructive power is appalling. Strong buildings are reduced to rubble. Automobiles lifted and flung through the air. Great trees whirled about like toothpicks.
And I just know that Chief Burnett had always said, the Mound will protect your city. You protect the Mound, and it will protect you.
I'm Mackenzie Martin. This is the People's History of Kansas City. And on this episode, we're fact-checking supernatural stories about tornadoes.
Like every town has like their, and someone died over here, and this, that, and the other, and that's kind of ours.
I knew about the legend, but I truly didn't understand it till after the tornado.
Okay, so something you should know about Maya is that she, like me, is a journalist. And she's not the kind of person to blindly believe in a myth. Unless, of course, she can find cold, hard evidence.
In my mind, everything kind of has a correlation and a causation.
This makes her the perfect person to help us get to the bottom of not one, but 2 tornado urban legends in Kansas.
If there's something out there that doesn't really have a concrete answer, then I want to go out there and I want to find it and I want to ask questions.
Maya spent a lot of time investigating the Tonganoxie Split and this mystery about why tornadoes seem to always miss the Kansas City area. But during the process of that reporting, she also found out about this lesser-known but still pretty eerie story. So we're going to start there, at Burnett's Mound, the highest natural point of elevation in Topeka, Kansas. At first glance, it just looks like this gorgeously scenic spot overlooking the city, with nearby trails and beautiful vegetation, but it's also rumored to be a Native American burial ground, with some deep local lore.
It's kind of been this long-standing urban legend that this mound could deflect tornadoes.
The legend of Burnett's Mound originates from a holy man of the Potawatomi tribe named Wiskigi Amayuk, who lived around the turn of the 20th century. According to him, long ago there was this horrible storm on the prairie. Many tribal members were injured. Others died.
The tornado's anger, it left a lot of bodies kind of scattered among cattle and horses.
7 of the victims were directly related to Chief Abram Burnett, the tribal leader the mound was named after. As the story goes, the tribe spent days praying and preparing for this massive burial ceremony in the shadow of the mound. And that's when they decided to try and prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again.
They asked the Great Spirit of Life to kind of watch over and bless this large mound with the ability to stop powerful spinning wind. And they asked this mound to protect the people that had survived the tornado and lived on the land. And they asked the Great Spirit to watch over the dead that had been laid to rest.
So the idea was basically, if you let this mound be and you treat it with respect, you will be saved from future storms.
Yes, yeah.
But it did not protect people in 1966, did it?
It did not.
One of the most deadly and destructive tornadoes in Kansas history, an F5 twister, took place in the summer of 1966.
6 p.m. the 8th of June. Threatening skies and thunderstorms to the west. For about the 50th time this spring, the Weather Bureau issued a tornado watch for eastern Kansas. For the 50th time, ham radio operators, sheriff's deputies, police, highway patrolmen, and newsmen wearily made their way to tornado spotting points ringing Topeka. And for the 50th time, many Topekans impatiently shrugged off the forecast as another cry of wolf, rolled up their car windows, and sat down to dinner. Within an hour, it would be a night when houses flew.
One of the people who was there that night was legendary broadcaster Bill Curtis.
It's in this part of the city right now, 17th and Webster. At least one house was demolished there.
These days, you probably know him from the NPR News quiz show, Wait, Don't Tell Me. But back in 1966, Bill Curtis was a law student at nearby Washburn University, and he only sometimes filled in at the TV station, WIBW. It was actually this night that solidified for him that he should be a journalist. But he recently told my colleague, Steve Kraske, that it was a total fluke. He was even on the air that night.
I accepted a job with a trial firm in Wichita. And my friend, Tom Parbley, the news director, called and said, "Hey, could you fill in for me tonight doing the 6 o'clock news? I want to go leave for vacation." I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to leave my tax review class," which I hated. And so off I go.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
At 6:30, they said, "Hey, you better stick around because we have some high winds coming in from the west, Manhattan." I said, "Sure, so I'll stick around." 7 o'clock comes, and we were waiting for the all clear. We all know that comes automatically. Nobody has really had the tornado. And all of a sudden, I hear this two-way radio from our cameraman. He said, "We've got a tornado on the ground."
In the area near 29th and Gage in South Topeka, destruction at its utmost. Cars overturned, houses completely smashed.
At one point, the tornado was heading straight towards Washburn University, where Curtis's wife and 6-month-old daughter were.
Well, here's the dilemma for a young 26-year-old, any broadcaster. What do you say to get people into the shelter to save their lives? And I thought about crying and shouting and cussing and all in a fraction of a second.
It is now moving toward the north part of the city.
I had to go on, and I said, "For God's sake, take cover."
If you live in the north part or on the northern edge, for God's sake, take cover.
Bill Curtis and his family ended up surviving, but not everyone was as lucky.
I spoke to Rita Burnett, who survived the 1966 Topeka tornado.
I really don't mind talking about it because it's an experience first that I will never forget. And I always share it with anyone who asks because unless you've been through it, you really don't know.
When this tornado hit, Rita was about to turn 10 years old.
It started out as a normal day.
Her mother, her father, and her grandmother, they were returning from a grocery run in North Topeka, and they were over a bridge driving to their house. They were about 5 minutes away when the sirens went off.
Against my mom's wishes, he continued to drive home. Got home, the sky was very dark We all live on a family block. And on that family block, there was only 3 houses that had basements. One of them was my aunt's house. And luckily, my Aunt Jenny had 2 tables in the corner of the basement. And we scooted underneath those tables.
In the chaos, kids probably running around, crying, screaming, people scrambling to figure out where their loved ones are. She got separated from her dad, and she just said she remembers really just trying to reach out for her father's hand because she was so scared, but he was just out of reach.
And all of a sudden, you just heard this horrendous sound like the train was just going to come through the house. Then the next thing we knew, my mom looked out and my grandfather had started coming down the stairs, and my dad ran over, grabbed my grandfather's hand, and just as he pulled him, you heard things starting to fall, and we saw the door slam down where my grandfather would have been. I remember we all started screaming. My cousins started crying. It was just the most awful sound I think I've ever heard. And it seemed like forever, and then it just stopped. We got out from underneath the table, and there was just sunlight. And then we realized that just the whole block, it was just totally destroyed. Our house had been picked up from the foundation and moved and then dropped where the garage used to be. The house wasn't completely gone. There was no longer any roof, walls, but you could hear this little ding, 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 ding. Because my mother had put in a roast before we left, and the oven timer was going off. And the only thing that was left where the house was my piano was still standing.
The 1966 Topeka tornado, it killed 17 people, it injured more than 500 people, and it caused $2.3 billion in damage. So adjusted for 2023 inflation, this makes it one of the nation's most expensive tornadoes by far.
Wow.
When I was working on the piece, I thought that this would disprove the myth of the mound, but when I spoke to Rita, she was like, it actually reinforced this myth.
I just know that Chief Burnett had always said, the mound will protect your city. You protect the mound and it will protect you. But then they went and cut it down.
About 6 years earlier, there was a water tower that was built that disturbed this mound, and that really opened the door kind of for this super devastating storm.
Those that have been through the 66 tornado, I remember everybody hearing saying they shouldn't have touched Burnett's Mound. They shouldn't have touched Burnett's Mound.
So you're saying that if one believed in the myth of Burnett's Mound, they could point to the water tower as having disturbed it and ruining the protection of the mound.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I think Rita didn't explicitly say that she believed in the mound's power to split tornadoes, but she does kind of wonder if the mound wasn't split, then who knows what could have happened.
It was karma. If you're a person who believes in legends and stuff, I often wonder, would we have been okay?
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but stay with us. Next up, it's another mystical legend. We're investigating the Tonganoxie Split.
Hey there, it's Suzanne Hogan. While we're on this tip of exploring legends and spooky phenomenons, let me recommend another tale I think you might like. Over 100 years ago, Thomas Swope, one of the richest men in Kansas City, died under mysterious circumstances. The quest to figure out who exactly was to blame became one of the most publicized murder trials of the 20th century. So who did do it? For a thrilling Kansas City murder mystery, cue up our episode, The Strange Case of Mr. Swope and Dr. Hyde, and give it a listen. Okay, now back to Mac.
Okay, it is now time to move on to the second urban legend. Maya, for those who do not know, what is the Tonganoxie Split?
So the split kind of holds that the physical aspects of Tonganoxie, Kansas, which is 28 miles west of Kansas City, very similar to Burnett's Mound. It causes tornadoes and storms to split and weaken and therefore spare the Kansas City metro area of any inclement weather.
So it's like a lucky charm. Like when tornadoes are coming near Kansas City, people are like, the Tonganoxie Split is going to save us. Like, it's not coming here.
Yeah, no. When I was doing initial research for this article, I found a lot of threads on Reddit and Twitter. This guy posted a screen recording of his weather radar, and his caption was Tonganoxie Split, do your thing. So it's still very much alive and well, I think.
So we will get into the science behind this in a bit, but I also know that part of fact-checking this myth for you was finding out where the legend originated.
Yeah, so the Tonganoxie Split likely originated after people misunderstood a decree from Chief Tonganoxie of the Delaware tribe.
As the story goes, the chief said something along the lines of, there will be no more storms. And some people took that as some sort of literal promise, when in reality,
he most likely spoke about an end to the violence, not about the actual weather.
And I understand that you know from firsthand accounts that this is a big part of the local Tonganoxie culture.
Oh my God, it is such a huge part of the Tonganoxie culture.
There is some atmospheric effect through that hill, which we call Hubble Hill because there's a cemetery on top of it.
Like every town has like and someone died over here and this, that, and the other, and that's kind of ours.
I think it's probably a source of town pride. Like we're this small town in Kansas that a lot of people don't know about, but there's this weather myth that really puts us on the map, and it's a really cool weather myth because it says that our town that's very, very small, it has the power to split these huge, powerful storms.
Well, I mean, you can see thunderstorms coming, and all of a sudden they just kind of go to the north, to the south of us.
There's a severe storm any side of us. It almost always goes around. And I feel like that's not a coincidence.
Okay, so clearly there's a lot of pride about the Tonganoxie Split.
Yes.
But what does the science say? Like, you went into this story, Maya, like, kind of being a skeptic, trying to figure out, like, are these myths real? Like, is there any truth to this? What did you find?
Yeah, so a lot of experts who I spoke to, there were some that said, well, you shouldn't really phrase the question in a kind of black and white way, as in the split exists or it doesn't exist. It's kind of, do these factors that contribute to thunderstorms behaving and splitting a certain way over areas, are these factors scientifically sound? Are the conditions right for this weather splitting phenomenon?
No one knows all the facts about tornadoes, but meteorologists can detect the thunderstorm conditions that give birth to them. The presence of layers of air of contrasting temperature, moisture, density, and wind flow.
One of the scientists who I spoke to, he put it really well, where he was like, the science is basically everywhere and nothing really makes sense.
The Tonganoxie Split is I think is fascinating. It's definitely been ingrained in the weather lexicon of Kansas City for a long time.
That's what John Kurtz said.
I'm the warning coordination meteorologist here at the National Weather Service office in Kansas City.
He said that he worked at a lot of weather stations across America, and he said that in most places he's worked at, they all have urban legends similar to this.
So you're saying that Tonganoxie, Kansas is not unique in thinking that it has magical powers that is making storms split around it?
I am unfortunately saying that Tonganoxie is not a unique, magical, special town.
Canton, Ohio has a rumored Canton Split, and in Omaha, Nebraska, the mystical phenomenon is referred to as the Omidome. And those are just two examples. I could give you more. So for those that are claiming the split is real, what is the scientific evidence here?
So the three things that these scientists said that could contribute to the split's existence when conditions are right: building barriers, urban heat islands, and topographical features like hills and mountains.
Okay, so let's break into those. So the first one was heat islands.
What
is a heat island?
Yes, with urban heat islands, what happens is that man-made structures, so glass, skyscrapers, buildings, pavement, whatever, it will absorb the sun's heat and it will re-emit it at a much higher intensity than kind of the surrounding natural areas.
The city initiates upward motion because hot air rises.
So someone who I talked to about this, his name is Bob Bornstein. He's professor emeritus at San Jose State University.
And that upward motion triggers a thunderstorm to form right over the city and produces a maximum rainfall. But there's another effect on cities, and that is that the buildings provide a barrier for the flow. So if a prevailing flow impinges on a city, the buildings create a barrier and the flow diverts, splits, goes around the city.
So it's like sometimes it helps a storm to go away and sometimes it would make a storm more intense.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about building barriers? That was another one on your list.
So there were a few scientists who I spoke to that said that the gaps between buildings in really big cities like New York City, they can kind of form these wind tunnels and these wind chutes.
Winds are much slower in the city than they are outside the city.
I spoke to Dev Nyogi. He's an Earth and Planetary Sciences professor at the University of Texas at Austin.
So as winds are moving from high pressure to low pressure, if you have buildings, those buildings, they are going to create a form of their own energy barrier.
He said that kind of natural features like hills and mountains, they can also cause thunderstorms to split apart as well.
Think about it like you have a box of marbles rolling towards on a table. And if the table is perfectly flat, there's a likelihood that like a bowling ball, they will all go in a straight line. But if the table had slightly sloping edges from the center going away, then the balls or the marbles will start going a little towards the left, little towards the right.
So, Maya, what I'm taking away from all of this is that the split is real maybe sometimes, but we don't really know yet.
I mean, yeah, you're right. So the split could be real, but it also could not be. But it maybe could be if these conditions are right and precise enough.
This feels like sort of a non-answer, but I guess we can agree perhaps to sort of leave the door open while the scientists keep duking it out and just like keep the possibility out there for Tonganoxie.
Well, here's the thing.
Oh, God.
Bob said a lot of interesting things in our conversation, but one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me is I asked him, like, okay, given everything we've talked about, do you think that the split could possibly exist?
I think it's just the greater Kansas City urban area that's splitting it. So it's not the smaller town that's really splitting it, but it is Kansas City itself, a larger city.
He said that it just doesn't have enough tall buildings or even a large enough urban heat island to disrupt storms. But when I spoke to Dev, he said that Kansas City and Tonganoxie work in tandem to split storms.
It's probably the two of them together that are doing this. So let's give Tonganoxie some credit.
So he was like, we should give credit to Tonganoxie where it's due.
I think that's sweet. And it also makes me think about how a part of why urban legends like this even exist is because the alternative is so scary. Like tornadoes are so dangerous and seemingly so random. We all want to think we're protected from them.
Yeah, I think it's a really primal urge to kind of have some sort of reason, have something to latch onto, even if it's not the most logical, just to feel safe. If I were hiding under a table in a basement, I would much rather think that there was this mythical power out there that could potentially save me rather than me being like, it's a total gamble and my house may or may not be destroyed right now.
Exactly. And this is why we all love the lore of the split. And actually, on that, I do have to confess something to you. So when I first moved to Kansas City, the Tonganoxie Split also really interested me. And so I ended up interviewing this sort of kooky local meteorologist about it named Gary Lezak. And I booked him on our local talk show, Up to Date.
I came to Kansas City in 1992.
And Gary told me about this other meteorologist named Dan Henry.
Oh, yeah, like Dan Henry from WDAF. He also referenced the split several times in his broadcast.
Yes, he did. So Dan Henry passed away in 2015, but he was this other sort of zany Kansas City weather guy.
93 degrees for a high tomorrow, and scattered showers will be in and around. One way to keep cool, get yourself a large block of ice and sit on it.
And I was fortunate to work with Dan Henry his last few months on television in Kansas City before he retired.
And a lot of people credit Dan Henry with helping popularize the Tonganoxie Split and keeping it alive. But according to Gary, who knew Dan Henry, he did way more than that.
It's a term he came up with.
No way.
Years and years ago in the 1970s and 80s.
And he told me this other theory about it. Like, he would predict something, like he would say, okay, guys, like the Kansas City metro areas, the tornado's coming through. It's going to be crazy.
That's about as big lie as I can tell in one chunk.
And then if it didn't happen.
When a storm missed us, to make an excuse for how we missed the weather forecast, he goes, you know what it was? It was a Tonganoxie Split.
That's so funny.
So basically, this other origin story of it is just like meteorologists like covering their forecast so people don't get mad at them. It's obviously impossible to confirm this since Dan Henry is no longer around. But if Gary Lezak is correct, then Dan Henry just sort of got lucky in that he made this joke, it caught on, and there might actually be some scientific reasons why we have believed it for this long.
Well, if that doesn't sound like good, truthful, ethical journalism, I don't know what does.
Maya Cederlund is a graduate student at Northwestern University and a former intern at KCUR. You can read her story about the Tonganoxie Split at kcur.org/peopleshistory. A People's History of Kansas City was produced and mixed this month by me, Mackenzie Martin. Editing by Suzanne Hogan and Gabe Rosenberg. Special thanks this episode to KCUR interns Jacob Smolin and Carter Galloway. You heard audio from NBC, KMBC, WIBW 13, WDAF TV, St. Louis Public Radio, The Wizard of Oz, the National Weather Service, the United Gas Corporation, and Blue Dot Sessions. We are a production of KCUR Studios, a podcast network in Kansas City, and we will be back in your feeds in November with another story from our series leading up to the World Cup. We all know soccer is a beloved sport around here these days, but that wasn't always the case. And one Kansas City sportsman did a lot to change that.
I think you could make a pretty convincing case that were it not for Lamar Hunt, the World Cup would not be in Kansas City.
How Lamar Hunt helped make soccer famous in the United States. That's next month. Until then, you can find us on Instagram at KC People's History for more stories about the people who created Kansas and Missouri. Thank you so much for listening.